Alright guys, so here is another Patreon request, and this one comes from Tom Hibbert. And Tom Hibbert asked me to do a story adaptation of basically a story adaptation of The Death and Return of Superman, but instead the Death and Return of Sailor Moon. So here we are. We're gonna do we're gonna try to do like a Death of Superman and Return of Superman, and a little bit of Reign of Superman in there, to essentially try to do all that, but in a Sailor Moon style. So let's start off with where this takes place. So basically where this takes place is set after the entire events of the show. It is set at the end of the anime. We are headed towards the wedding of Mamoru and Usagi. But, however, something has caused a massive earthquake in northern Japan. But it's not from the ocean. Usually that comes from the ocean. A group of geologists head out to find out what had happened. And what had happened, basically, was that something broke out of a mountainside. Something just tore out of a mountainside, and it has been unleashed on, it's just been unleashed. This thing is a huge hulking creature that is just kind of like our Doomsday. It's called the Godmonger, and the Godmonger is this is just this huge brute of a creature that was used as a weapon, not by mankind, but by the Moon Kingdom. Basically what it was there was a war between the people of the Moon and Earth, and essentially what had happened was during that war, Usagi's, Serenity's ancestors created the Godmonger and dropped it on Earth to slaughter everything. But then they realized, this is really fucked up, let's just lock it away. And they locked it away, but they buried it like super deep in the earth. They didn't just bury it in a mountainside. They buried it all the way to the center of the earth. All this time, the Godmonger has been all these centuries, the Godmonger has been digging its way up from the earth back to Japan. Like, literally, all this time, it's just been digging its way up from the center of the earth and going up. Yeah. So now it's finally free and tearing its way through Japan. And don't think, oh, Usagi is, the descendant of Serenity, so she can just tell it to cool off. No, that thing is pissed off. It was a mindless killing machine that is set to destroy everything. So the wedding has to be postponed, and Usagi and the rest of the Sailor Guardians have to go fight the Godmonger. And this thing goes through them like toilet paper. This thing is just ripping through them left and right. Like, it is just decimating the Sailor Guardians. Eventually, though, Sailor Moon, and it's only down to Sailor Moon and the Godmonger in Tokyo, just like Superman and Doomsday in Metropolis. The two do battle, the two clash, and Sailor Moon dies killing the Godmonger. It's not like with Doomsday where it's still alive. No, this thing's dead too. So Sailor Moon has died in a brutal battle with the Godmonger. But that's not the end of our story. Nope. You see, what happened after that was the whole world saw on the news Sailor Moon fighting this monster alone. And just after that, the Sailor Guardians run up and they find their leader dead in Mamoru's arms. And that's when all these other heroes start showing up. All these other heroes start running in, where do you need us? And Sailor Mars is the first one to go, she needed you. All this time, she laid down she laid down everything, and the one time we needed you, you weren't fucking here. So, fuck all of you. And it's more like she's raging at herself, because her and the other Sailor Guardians are raging at themselves, because how many times had Usagi been kicked around? How many times had she been beaten down by all of this and had to save the world? And now she's paid the price after defeating, like, Beryl, Galaxia, all of these villains, and now she's gone. So, and they couldn't, and at no point could they stop her. I mean, stop it, or help save her life. So they're just raging at everything. And essentially, what happens is that a funeral is held for Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon is basically like, they hold a ceremony for Sailor Moon, and then, not too long after that, like a few weeks later, someone arrives at the spot where it's like a plaque where Sailor Moon died here, saving the people of Tokyo and the people of Japan from the Godmonger. And what happens is, like, it turns, this being that shows up is a cybernetic Sailor Moon, a cyborg Sailor Moon, and meanwhile, Chibiusa is like, this shouldn't happen because, like, I'm still here. Like, at some point, Sailor Moon has to come back. Like, my mom has to come back because I'm out, I'm in this timeline. I'm obviously still going to exist. And that's when Ami brings up the point of, that's not how this probably works. You probably just created another alternate timeline just by existing here. So the fact that you're still here doesn't mean that Usagi's going to come back. It doesn't mean that you're going to be not exist out of continuity. You're just existing out of your own continuity. Being here created an alternate timeline. So your future is totally different because just because you're still here doesn't mean that Sailor Moon's going to come back. And to prove this, Mamoru and Sailor Mercury are like, maybe we should just look, because that thought's still in their head. So they go look and encounter and see that the body's gone. And this is when Makoto and Rei are like, you got to get down to downtown Tokyo now. And that's when they discover this cyborg Usagi. And Cyber Usagi is made from, like, just half cybernetic. And she basically says, oh, well, I did die. Like, yeah, I died. And what happened was that my body was taken out of its coffin. Yeah, my body was taken out of its coffin and by another being that helped me. And I was cybernetically created. I was rebuilt. Like, my body, most of my body couldn't be saved. And she looks at Mamoru, who's like, I know, like, you and me had a thing, but you can't even look at me right now because of this. If you really actually loved me, you would have, looked past all these parts. I know I look hideous, but I still want to be with you, Tuxedo Mask. And he's like, He doesn't think about the fact that she calls him Tuxedo Mask and not Mamoru, so because it's here, she's here, so he's like, I don't know what to think. However, who is thinking that this is a little sus is Chibiusa, who is our Superboy in this story, and Chibiusa is more or less trying to figure out all the pieces to all of this. Meanwhile, Rei, who's still, like, also sus about this new Cyber Moon. That's what she calls herself, is Cyber Moon. More or less, she's sus about what's all this about. So, and she believes through studying she can project herself into the afterlife to see if the real Usagi is there. Because she's like, there's no way this is Sailor Moon. So that's where it is that that Rei goes in the afterlife to find Sailor Moon, who is still in the afterlife, and by this point, you're wondering who's our Eradicator. Well, the Eradicator in here is a program that is created by Luna and Artemis, and it was more or less like a fallback program in case anything happened to the last Princess of the Moon. It was more like this program was meant to protect and revitalize the last princess in case anything happened. That thing failed, and now it's kind of thinks it is Sailor Moon, and it calls itself Alpha Moon. So we have Chibi, who calls herself the new Sailor Moon. We have Cyber Moon and Alpha Moon. However, it's later discovered that Alpha Moon, much like in the Return of Superman comic, that Alpha Moon found Usagi's body, was the one who took it out, and actually stored it away on the Moon Kingdom. Like, she took it back to the Moon Kingdom and took it back to a life chamber to bring her back to life. She was dead, but it's like this one and done. We can only use this once chamber to bring her back. So, but at the same time, there was a glitch in the Alpha Moon system, and so it thought it was Usagi and went back down there and forgot its mission. So, obviously, by this point, Rei finds Usagi, restores her soul back into Usagi's body. Meanwhile, Cyber Moon is revealed to be a failed creation of Pharaoh 90. It was like this... It was this weird creation from using both, like, lost magic from Beryl and dark science to create a clone of Usagi and Hotaru, Sailor Saturn, and mix them both, but it didn't have enough genetic code, so they put cybernetic parts to fill in the gaps. And it's carrying out, like, its last program, which is destroy not only the Sailor Guardians, but it's going one step further and going, I'm going to destroy everything. But by this point, Sailor Moon reawakens, and Alpha Moon dies fighting Cyber Moon, but Cyber Moon is destroyed by Sailor Moon. And Sailor Moon retakes her spot as, the leader of the Sailor Guardians, and life continues on its way. So there you go, guys. There is the death and return of Sailor Moon. I didn't want to make this video too long, but I'd like to thank Tom Hibbert for this Patreon request. And as always, if you'd like to have a Patreon request done, just hit the link below. Head on over to my Patreon. Other than that, I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.